all different kinds of scales. So make sure you have your math notebook ready. At the top of your page, put lesson 27 and today's date and notes. And here we go. All right, here are your Power Up mental math questions, A through H. Go ahead and work those out, and then when you're ready, come back and press play. All right, welcome back. Okay, here's our problem solving today. Remember, we did this just the other day, so we should know how to do it. Remember, we are going to read to find out what we need to do. So it says, use each of the digits 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to complete this addition problem. But it's actually a subtraction problem this time, a subtraction problem. Let's make sure that that's right. Yeah, subtraction. So this word should say subtraction. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so we did it last time with these numbers and we did addition, but today we're going to use subtraction. So what did we do last time? Last time, remember, we used logical thinking and we used some guess and check. All right, so that's the same thing we're going to do this time. So let's see. We're going to need to know that we have to have a number here on top that is big enough to subtract the number on the bottom, unless we need to carry a number, which is possible, right? All right, so let's see if we can figure this out, okay? What number is big enough to subtract a smaller number? Well, I say we start with the 9 because it's our biggest number, right? So let's go ahead and put a 9 up here, okay? And let's say we want to subtract something. What number could we subtract? We could subtract 8, but that would give us a 1, and we don't have any 1s up in our options. So we could subtract 7, and that would give us a 2, and that won't work. We could subtract 6, and that would give us, what? 3, but we don't have a 3 as a choice, and we could subtract 5, but that would give us a 4. So we know 9 is not the right answer for us. Okay, it's not the right answer. So let's grab our erasers. We're going to erase our number 9, just like that. I wish erasing was that easy in real life. Okay, let's try a different number. Maybe a smaller number would be a better choice. Let's start with our smallest number and see if that works out better. Okay, so let's draw a 5, or write a 5 here. What number could go down below the 5? Well, we could put any of them there. We're going to have to carry, right? We know we're going to have to carry a number over because all of the other numbers are bigger than 5. So let's just start with our biggest number and get that out of the way and see if that'll work out for us. So we know this is actually going to become 15. So 15 minus 9 leaves us with 16, right? Or 6, sorry. 6. Ooh, there we go. Sorry, that is a horrible 6. All right, there's our 6. So we've used our 5, our 6, and our 9. So now we only have a 7 and an 8 left. Okay, but we know that the 8 has to go on top, right? Because we could not possibly subtract with a 7 on top. Well, I mean, we could, but we wouldn't get a right answer, right? So now we know that this is going to become 7 in our imagination because we borrowed the 1, and that means that the 7 would drop down and be our number. All right, so there we go. There is our problem solving, and remember the way to check our work, which is our last step always in problem solving, is to reverse the order of operations and to do addition, right? So we know that 76, here, that's a little bit better, 76 plus 9 should give us 85 if we're right, right? So 9 plus 6 equals 15. We carry the 1. then we get 85. Okay, so we double checked our work and we used all of our numbers so we know we did that right. Okay, moving on. Today we are focusing on scales. So this you should write down in your math notebook, please. Scales. We can use a number line as a scale for measuring temperature. Now we already know what a number line is because we've used it before. But now we know that we can use it to measure temperature. There are two different temperature scales. One is Fahrenheit and one is Celsius. Here in South America, we use Celsius. In North America, they use Fahrenheit, at least in the United States. All right. Most places in the world actually use Celsius, but a few do use Fahrenheit. Okay, and we can use a number line just like a scale for measuring temperature, and that is what we're going to figure out how to do today. Things to know about temperature. You might want to note these down in your books so that when they come up in your homework, you know what to do about them. I'm going to try to move this video out of the way. Okay, so that you can see the notes better. Things to know. Water freezes at these two temperatures, 32 degrees Fahrenheit and 0 degrees Celsius. Now, what does that tell us? That means that 32 degrees Fahrenheit is equal to 0 degrees Celsius, right? Because the temperature that water freezes at doesn't change, but 32 degrees Fahrenheit is the same as 0 degrees Celsius. And water boils at 212 degrees, that is hot, 212 degrees Fahrenheit, or 100 degrees Celsius. Okay, again, we would know then that 212 degrees Fahrenheit is equal to 100 degrees Celsius. Now, over here it tells you the Celsius scale, a centigrade scale, meaning that there are 100 gradations or degrees between freezing and boiling points of water. There's 100 degrees difference. You can see that here, okay? So there's 0 is freezing and 100 is boiling. So there's 100 degrees difference in the Celsius scale. All right, let's move down. Here we have two thermometers. All right, you do not need to write this down, but you do need to watch and pay attention. We have where water freezes, and remember we said that that would make them equal. Okay, 0 degrees Celsius is equal to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. We have room temperature. Okay, now this does not mean the temperature of your specific room. It's just an average temperature we call room temperature, which would be 20 degrees Celsius and 68 degrees Fahrenheit. And then we know water boils at 100 degrees Celsius or 212 degrees in Fahrenheit. Now, notice that these number lines on the side of our scales do not show us every number in between. They are only showing us some numbers. So if we wanted to know a different number, we would have to figure out what these lines are representing, how much they are representing, okay? So if we see here is 0, and then if we said 5, 10, 15, 20, then we can see that this scale, this thermometer, is moving up at 5 degrees at a time, 5 degrees Celsius at a time. Now let's look over here. It should be the same, right? 32 plus 5 would make 37, right? Then it would be 42. And then 42 plus 5 is 47. And 47 plus 5 is 52. Not quite the same. But you will also see that 68 is not right on the line of right here, okay? So you need to watch carefully that it's not right on that line, okay? Let's move down. Example 1. At 6 a.m., the temperature was 21 degrees Celsius. The thermometer shows the noon temperature. How many degrees did the temperature increase from 6 a.m. till noon? Okay, so we can say that at 6 a.m., the temperature was 21 degrees. So here's 20. Now, is there 10 marks between here and here? Between 10 and 20? I mean, between 20 and 30? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's only 5. So we can see that each one of these marks is actually only counting for 2 degrees. Okay, it's not counting for 5, and it's not counting for 1, it's counting for 2. Okay, and it said that at 6 a.m., the temperature was right here at 21. Not at this line, but at the in between the two lines. This is going to be 21. Okay, so you got to be careful when you're reading a scale or a number line that you understand what the value of each of these lines is representing. Okay, so here we have 20, then 21's in between the two lines. Okay, so there's 21 degrees. And when you're writing in math, remember to always include the symbol or whatever it is. That should be a little degree sign, but it's hard to do on here. Okay, there's 21 degrees. Then it asks us, how many degrees did the temperature increase by noon? By noon. That means we're going to see that this scale is showing that at noon, the temperature was 32 degrees, right? Because we decided that each one of these lines is 2 degrees. So we're going to put a nice line right here, and we're going to say it's 32. And we're going to use our little degrees sign here. There we go. That's better. Okay. So how would we decide how many degrees the temperature increased from 6 a.m. till noon? Well, you could count, but you have to remember to count the in-betweens. Or we could do some subtraction, right? We could do 32 minus 21. And that would give us our answer. So 2 minus 1 is 1. 3 minus 2 is 1. Okay, so our answer is 11, and we need to put our degrees symbol up on top. 11 degrees Celsius, and we want to put a C so we know it's Celsius and not Fahrenheit, because that's a big difference. Remember how different those scales are. Okay, so we want to make sure we're putting Celsius and not Fahrenheit, and we want to make sure we include that so we know what we're talking about. Okay, so it increased 11 degrees Celsius. All right, example 2. What number on this scale is the arrow pointing? To what number is the arrow pointing? Well, the arrow, let's see. Let's read our scale. Now, this is not a thermometer. Now, this looks more like some sort of gauge. Hopefully, it's not a speed gauge because you would be going very fast. All right, so what number is this pointing? Let's see. We have a 400 is this big line. There's another big line here, but it's not labeled. And then there's a big line here that's labeled 600. And then another big line here that's not labeled. And then we see 800. So it looks like all of the big lines are equal to what? 100-point difference. Okay, which means that these little lines that are halfway between would be 50 points or 50 difference. Okay, so if this one is 500, because we're going up, right, from 400, and we haven't got to 600 yet, so this line is 500, but our arrow is over here on this little line, so we would say this line is 500 and what? 550. Okay, so as you can see, number lines are used all the time for all sorts of different things, and you don't even think about it. But now we want to make sure we know how to read them and read them properly. Okay, so if I sent you outside and said, please tell me what this gauge on the side of the building is reading, and you came back and you told me, oh, it says 650, but it really says 550, we might have some problems with our communication. So we need to remember to read in order of the numbers, what order they're moving, and how much each line, even if it's not labeled, how much it's worth. Okay, those things have value, even if they aren't written on there. All right. Example 3, draw a horizontal number line from 0 to 500 with only 0 and hundreds marked and labeled. How can we do that? How could we draw a horizontal number line from 0 to 500 with only 0 and hundreds marked? Well, we're going to first make sure that we're drawing a nice straight line. Let me see if I have a line tool here. Nope, I don't. Let's see. Okay, we're going to draw as nice and straight a line as we can. And horizontal means it's going this way, like a hamburger, okay? So remember, horizontal starts with a H, hamburger starts with an H, so it's going this way. Vertical is the other direction, okay? Vertical, but we want to do horizontal, like a hamburger. Okay, so here we go. We're going to draw, my line's not super straight, sorry guys, but there's my number line, okay? And we want to have a starting point, which is 0, right? Because that's what it tells us in the directions. And we want to have an ending point of what? 500. Okay, so we know we have these two numbers on our number line, but we need to also include hundreds and nothing else, no other numbers. Okay, so what could we do? Well, we should probably mark out 0 to 100, right? So 0 to 100. Now we don't need to draw all the lines because it told us just to mark hundreds. Okay, so here's 100. Okay, so when you're doing your homework, you need to read the directions carefully so you're not doing things you're not supposed to be doing. Okay, now we need a what? We need another line here about equal distance away because it's an equal amount. You could use a ruler to be really specific and make each inch 100 or every 2 inches 100. Okay, so there's 200. Another equal spaced out line is 300. Now it's important when you're using a number line to keep your spacing in a way that makes sense. So if I see your homework and your line for the next part is right here by the 300, that makes no sense, right? Because these are separated equally and the space in between equals 100. So if you draw a line right here, it would not equal 100. It would equal maybe 325 or something like that. Okay, so you need to do about equal distance and then draw 400. Okay, now if you're using a ruler, then you can do this a little bit better. And then this actually 500 should be right here because they're equal distance apart, right? But I started at the end, so it's a little bit tricky. Okay, so here's 500. Okay, and I'm not able to just erase this part, so I'm just going to put a nice X through it, but I would expect you to erase it and make it look nice, okay? But this program does not let me erase just that little end part. It would erase the whole thing. Okay, does that make sense? So they need to be equal spaces apart and labeled correctly, okay? You cannot do 100 here and then do 300 and then 200 and then 500 and 400. That does not make any sense. They need to go in numerical order and they need to be equal distance apart. Now, if I asked you to also include 50s, then I would expect that you would make a smaller line maybe and put it between the two spots, right? To indicate that that's where the 50 is happening. So this would be 50, and then this would be 150, and then 250, and then 350, and 450. Okay? That should make sense. If that doesn't make sense, come and visit me in study hall so we can figure it out together. All right. Let's go on to lesson practice. It says, draw a number line from 100 to a 100 with only zeros and tens marked and labeled. Okay, you should know how to do that because we just did it with a 500. So make sure you start your number line. Okay, I don't mind if you want to go horizontal or vertical because it does not ask you or tell you which one you have to do. So you can make that choice for yourself. If you want to make a horizontal or vertical line, but you need to make it nice and neat. It says from 100 to 100 with only zeros. Now that does not make sense. So let me double check here what they're asking you to do. Maybe this got written down wrong. It should be from 0 to 100. Okay, from 0 to 100. That makes way more sense. From 0 to 100 with only zeros and tens marked and labeled. Okay, so you're going to start with a 0, and now you're only going to count up by tens, and you're going to mark each one, just like we did with the 100. So I'll get you started, and this would be what? This would be 10. Okay, and then you need to go on and make it evenly spaced until you get to 100. Okay, then it says on the Celsius scale, what temperature is 5 degrees less than the freezing point of water? On the Celsius scale, what temperature is 5 degrees less than the freezing point of water? Okay, remember that on our Celsius scale, you can go back and look in your book what it is, but on our Celsius scale, water froze at 0 degrees Celsius, right? 0 degrees Celsius. So what would be 5 degrees less than 0? That's what answer you're going to put right there. 5 degrees less than. Okay, 5 degrees less than 0. Okay, and you put in the blank. All right, points A and B on this number line indicate two numbers. Write the two numbers and use a comparison symbol to show which is greater and which is less. Okay, now remember that every time in your book where it says represent, you need to show your work. Some of you are not doing that, and so you're not getting full credit on your math, okay? If it asks you to represent, then you need to show your work. If it does not say represent, then you do not need to show your work. There's also parts where it asks you to explain your answer. That means you actually need to stop and give an explanation for the answer that you got, not just say the answer. And some of you are not explaining your answers. Okay, so take the time to read the question and then do what it's asking you to do. In this case, it's saying points A and B on this number line indicate the two numbers. Write the two numbers and use a comparison symbol to show which is greater and which is less. So in your notebook, you would need to draw out the number line with the A and the B. Okay, make sure you draw the spaces just like they have them. Don't make up some other way to do it. And then you need to figure out what they represent. Now here is 0, and here is 50, and here is 100. So we need to figure out what these lines in between are indicating, okay? So I would say they're probably indicating 10, but let's count. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Yes, that makes sense. So that would make A is equal to 30, right? Now, what would B be equal to? Well, here's 50, 60, 70, 80. Okay, B is equal to 80. Okay, now the last part of this says use a comparison symbol to show which is greater and which is less. So that means you're going to need to write out your comparison symbol. Oh, that's wonky. Sorry. Okay. You can write it much nicer than me. There's our comparison symbol. Now, if you choose to draw your circle around it, make sure you draw your circle in a way that I can still read your symbol. Some of you are writing your circle so tight around your symbol that I can't tell if it's an equal sign or greater than or less than sign. Okay, so leave some space so I can determine which one you're actually putting. Okay, it's important to write neatly. I know on this thing I can't write neatly, but you have a pencil or a pen in your hand, so you should be able to write neatly. Okay, here is your homework. Pages 167 to 170, and you're only going to do the even problems. Just the even problems. Now, you can always do more if you want to, but I am only going to be grading the even ones. But if you want to do the others to practice in preparation for tests, you are always welcome to do the other ones, but the even ones are the only ones I will be giving a grade for, okay? So make sure in Moodle today that you turn in your lesson notes that we just did together, and then turn in the even problems for your homework, okay? Have a great day.